Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. Welcome. Let me see if I can get my screen to go live here. There we go. Good morning and welcome. We are going to be go ahead and get started in just a moment here. My name's David, and I am broadcasting live from the west coast of the East Coast in Florida in the United States. Glad to be joining you this morning. We've got on the line Megan Lipinczyk, also from the U.S. We have got Richard and David and Brett from our EMEA team. So we are glad to have them with us. Brett is going to be taking the lead in just a moment here on the call, and he should be getting ready to get set up right now. So again, sit back, relax. If you do want to use the captions, again, you can select those in your video settings in the bottom right-hand corner of the video that's playing right now. So keep that in mind. And there's also a couple of different languages available. Please, again, as I mentioned earlier, this is a machine translation, so you'll have to be gracious on the translations. A couple of other notes to mention. There is a Q&A available to you. So if you would like to ask any questions at any time during the event, we can answer them privately or we can answer them publicly, but the Q&A will be available to you to be able to answer questions at any time throughout the event. You can ask anybody in particular, or you can just ask a general question, and we may or may not publish your question. If we don't get offended. But we will most likely try to answer all the questions that are available, and we may try to answer even some of the questions live on the air if we think everybody needs to be able to hear those questions. So please participate with us in that way. And there is also recording. There will also be a recording available to you after the event, and it will include all of this stuff that's going on right now, as well as the 10 minutes. So we'll try to trim the video down and make that available to everyone as well. Brett, are you all set?
I should be. Are you able to see my screen?
Not yet, but let me unshare mine, and then we should have an option here to see that. Go ahead and try to share your screen and then add content from below. I'm going to turn off my camera so everybody's not seeing my giant head.
All right, well, let me know when you see it.
All right, so go ahead and add your content from below. There we go.
All right, get this started. All right, are we good?
We are good.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this fine Wednesday afternoon to talk about wireless display. And I do appreciate you taking time out of your busy days. We are all on lockdown and enjoying this lovely staycation. So over the next 30 minutes or so, I and my colleague Megan will be talking about wireless display options and why it makes sense and what's the right way to do it. So here is who we are. I am Brett Roloff, Senior Alliance Manager. David Lopez, who is our MC, is also an Alliance Manager in North America. And Megan Lipinczyk, who will be co-hosting with me, is a Strategic Alliance Manager from North America as well. Megan, would you like to say hello? Or maybe be muted.
Good afternoon, everyone.
All right, off to a roaring start. Okay, so wireless display. As we look at wireless display, it's kind of an interesting thing to me how it's just now coming on the scene. And I've never really understood why, because goodness, it's been what, 15 years or so that we've had Wi-Fi, maybe more. And you know, everybody immediately got Wi-Fi. Okay, well, I have access wherever I go. Great. But for some reason, everybody thought it was perfectly okay to bring in their slim, expensive tablet device and plug in a big chunky HDMI cable, or worse, a VGA cable with adapter, and just nullify the whole purpose of having a lightweight device. Well, finally, attitudes are starting to change on that, and we're seeing wireless display starting to pop up in all sorts of market segments. So notably in the office, where you have meeting rooms, huddle spaces, conference rooms, executive board rooms, etc., where they want to have scenarios with it where they can come in and just connect. In education, we're seeing, we actually did an education webcast yesterday, and there are tons of applications within the education space for wireless display, not only for instructors, but also for students as well. Healthcare is another big one that we're seeing. For instance, here in the UK, we're seeing huge amounts of interest within the NHS system for wireless display, notably because it's one more thing that you don't have to touch, one more thing you don't have to sanitize. A doctor can just come in, connect wirelessly, and have all of their information there on the screen. Government's also a segment that we see growing. Hospitality is a perfect environment for wireless display, notably if there's conference rooms or a conference center attached to the hotel. And even in the home, wireless display is becoming more and more popular there as well. Now, you pair with that, since I believe most of us are distributors and resellers and whatnot of technology, pairing this with a large format display is really kind of the point. So if you can do a new install or an upgrade, a remodel, what have you, of a meeting space of some kind, pairing this with a nice big 4K monitor, perhaps touch enabled, perhaps, will really bring out a kind of a next level experience for your customer in terms of what they can do with a meeting room, and basically opening up that space so they're able to work and collaborate in a way that makes sense for them. So we're going to be talking about that more throughout the course of this webinar. But at the end of the day, what do you really want it to do? And this is something that I talk over with anyone who's considering a wireless display solution, is what do you really want? And I get this, I get, sometimes I get blank looks, other times I get a list of features that somebody has asked for, and like for instance, wanting to be able to share 4 screens at once, or wanting to be able to toggle this or toggle that, and that's all fine, and we can do that. But what it really comes down to is it easy to use? Because number one, people don't want to have to learn new technology, and number two, IT doesn't want to have to support new technology. What we really need is a solution that's stupid simple to use and just works. And that's what we've been working on for a very long time. A bit of background on us. We started as a networking company back in 1995. And we are a fairly sizable networking company. We have about 75 million devices in use around the world. But along the time of Windows 8, we were working initially with Intel on their WiDi initiative, which eventually got pushed over to Microsoft, who took it up as Miracast and built it into Windows 8.1 update. And we were actually the first solution to make use of that technology. And in fact, we're still a development partner for Microsoft even to this day. As each iteration of Windows 10 moves down the line, we're right there working with their programmers to enable rich experiences. So providing all of that is a really key experience for us, but doing so in a way that's as simple as possible. So is it easy to connect? Can it be done without apps? Can it be done wirelessly from anywhere in the room? Can it integrate seamlessly? Can it enable touch? And can it provide an exceptional experience? All of these things are basically the benchmark for how we designed our technology. And now we're going to go in and talk about what that experience, that easy to use experience, looks like. I don't have all of the ways you can connect up here. I'm missing one, but basically what we chose to do in our approach of no apps and no dongles is we wanted to use what was already in the operating system. So in Windows 10, if you hit Windows key K, you can have the option, a little menu will fly in on the right-hand side, and you can choose a Miracast device to connect to, enter a PIN, and you're good to go. On Apple products, and for that matter on Chrome products, you need to be on the same Wi-Fi to enable that. And you can either put our device on your company's Wi-Fi, or there's actually a built-in access point within the device itself. So the Apple or Chromebook device can connect directly to the ScreenBeam. And in which case, it's just a matter of going through screen mirroring, and then you're able to push the tablet top or the app to that screen. And finally, Android works the same way as Windows 10 does. You connect via Miracast, type in a PIN, and you're good to go. So all of those things are native in the operating system. You don't have to do anything to alter it. You don't have to install something. It just works. And that meets our benchmark for simplicity. Now, what I'd like to do is bring in Megan to discuss a little more in depth the ScreenBeam 1100 and some of the things that it has to offer.
Thank you, Brett. So with the ScreenBeam 1000, or I'm sorry, the ScreenBeam 1100, you get basically the ultimate secure wireless collaboration experience. This includes wireless Microsoft Office 365 touch display support, extended display, 4K video streaming, as well as digital signage. And with the 1100, it delivers an app-free screen sharing experience that ultimately brings that intuitive collaboration to any meeting space or classroom for that matter. You're also able to have local Wi-Fi mode connectivity with industry standard Miracast, a dual network infrastructure connectivity with network bridge functionality, which in turn helps deliver the most flexible deployment for employees and guest wireless presentations, which is huge. The really cool thing, and Brett touched on about this, is that you're able to have no third-party apps. They're not needed. So any technology can be used with this device without it being blocked. So you go into a meeting room with your MacBook, no problem. You can connect without having to worry about a dongle or an app. And if you have someone else that comes in with their Android phone, no problem. So with this 1100, it really is the most advanced wireless display with interactive touchscreen support. On the next, on the next slide.
Yeah, so let's actually talk about this for a second.
Thank you.
So enterprise customers have a certain set of demands, right? When you look at their environments, oftentimes there may be dozens or hundreds of meeting spaces dotted around the area. On top of that, there's your existing network infrastructure, which is also a bit problematic. So you have to have the ability to operate in those dense Wi-Fi environments. Additionally, you have to be able to adapt to specific enterprise needs in terms of capacities for meeting room space, or whether it's a smaller, tighter environment for meeting and collaboration. Those things have to be taken into account, along with enterprise-grade security and manageability, which we'll touch on here shortly, and of course, high performance and reliability. All of these are key aspects of the kind of the top-level criteria that enterprises are looking for when adopting a technology. So there's a couple of things that I want to point out that we support. One is P2P and InfraCast. Now, Miracast by nature is a point-to-point technology. So when it's in the meeting room and you connect a device to it, it is literally from your laptop to the ScreenBeam. That's the transmission range. That's what's happening. So you don't actually need an existing network infrastructure to make that work. It would work fine outside if you could supply power. It's just a matter of that negotiation and relationship between device and ScreenBeam. Infracast allows you to do the same thing, but over the Wi-Fi network if you choose. Additionally, we actually have a built-in access point. As I mentioned briefly earlier, access point being built in is to accommodate Apple and Chromebook users for that to have that same wireless display experience, and without necessarily having to open up that enterprise infrastructure to do that. So those are also key things to keep in mind, and I'll talk more about that in a little bit. One of the other benefits that we have is something called AGO mode. I have a slide for that, but just keep in mind that we allow you to define ScreenBeam's place on the network as you and your customers see fit. You don't have to basically take what we give you. Custom security options. Security is something that's very important to us given our networking background, and that's one of the reasons that ScreenBeam is used in banks and defense contractors and petrochemical and a variety of other environments where high security is a necessity. Also, what we've done is we've added digital signage. So if you have a ScreenBeam attached to a display, and maybe it's in one of your front-facing meeting rooms or in the lobby or what have you, we do have some lightweight digital signage. And essentially what it is it's a box that allows you to input a URL. Now that URL could be from something local or internal. I mean, you could cycle a PowerPoint, or all the way up to rich HTML5 with full motion video, etc. You have lots of capabilities there with what you can do with that. You're just developing most of it on the back end and then pumping it to a URL to give to ScreenBeam. But ScreenBeam's video processing is fully capable of showing really rich video experiences. So well worth a look. And Megan, you want to cover off the rest?
No problem. So you can also extend your desktop, which was super beneficial, as you can have that second screen, but also be able to work in the background. You can also do quick switch mode. So if you have presenters in a conference room and someone needs to share their screen quickly, instead of totally disconnecting, you can just do a quick switch and be able to have that functionality for that second presenter. In addition, we have the multi-view mode as well as ghost inking and remote management, and I'm going to go into each of those in the next 3 slides. So with multi-view mode, this solution allows presenters to have up to 4 screens. Now, this is super important when you're in a conference room or in a meeting space, lobby, even classroom. So you're able to have your 4 screens available and be able to have other people connect. So for additional users, you would have the pin and the receiver name would be at the bottom, so no time is lost, no one has to disconnect or anything, and then users can easily connect. So this again is great for conference rooms if people want to be able to see more than one screen. So this is a great feature that the 1100 has. Another feature that we are showing is ghost inking. So ghost inking is a patent pending technology that we developed, and excuse me, and with being able to have it off, there's significant latency between your ink and fingers. So if you're used to having that wireless display with your computer, and you are inking and you notice there might be some sort of delay, but with this ghost inking patent pending technology, you can have a more intuitive pen paper like experience. And you can see in the screenshot there that that little gray area, it's filling in that gap to eliminate latency. So it's essentially like you are writing on paper. So it's a really cool piece of technology.
So Megan, essentially, not only do we fully support all of the native inking that's within Office and within the Windows environment. But the fact that we can now interpolate and fill in the gaps, that's really significant. I don't know that anybody else has anything similar to this. But I know your background is particularly in education, Megan, and obviously they do a lot of writing, and I imagine that for them this ghost inking is incredibly useful.
Oh, for sure. So if I was able to have this in my classroom, this would be amazing, just because as you're writing, you're not seeing any hiccups or any delay and having to rewrite anything. But this is also great in presentation rooms where you're trying to show something or you're on your whiteboard and you get that instant feedback on the actual inking on what you're doing on that device. So that's pretty awesome patent pending technology that we have to offer.
Oh, that's great.
So in addition, with the 1100, you also have access to our CMS. So you're able to, it's included with the ScreenBeam, so it is only available from ScreenBeam. So with the central management system, it lets users easily manage the receivers distributed throughout to multiple conference rooms, classrooms, buildings, and locations with remote access of receivers located within the network. So from a central location, you're able to monitor receiver status, apply security policies, troubleshoot problems, perform a reset, update receivers, and more. So being able to use the central management system drastically reduces the cost of deploying and managing wireless display technology, and it supports any size deployment. So it's really beneficial to have that CMS when you have multiple receivers. And again, this is included with the ScreenBeam 1100.
That's an important point, Megan. So yeah, this tool is a free download. We don't require a license. You don't have to pay a subscription fee. It's part of it. You get it for free. You can download it and use it. And this tool is actually incredibly scalable, in that I think the largest deployment we have is something like 6,000 devices managed from one laptop. So it's incredibly powerful what you can do with all this to kind of automate the management of all of the ScreenBeam devices in your environment. And again, all the other features that Megan talked about with regard to, quick switch and multi-view and ghost inking, etc. Again, all of that occurs within the firmware. You do not have to alter the operating system of your device or install anything to make that happen. It's just ease of use capabilities that are a feature set we figured out how to add without making you have to alter your device to make use of it. Very powerful stuff. All right, now let me load all this up and talk about for a second some of the things that are important to note and why Miracast is important. Now, there are a number of technologies out there that can give wireless display. There are. I mean, we are one of many. But there are a few ways that we distinguish ourselves. And one of them is the way, particularly with Windows 10 and with Android, that sets us apart, in that we use what's called the Miracast protocol. And what that does is it allows us to have a direct connection with the device without having to add additional packets to the network, without having to pass all of this video signal through what's already a congested corporate network. We're going point to point. So that streamlines the experience. It saves time, makes it much quicker for individuals within the room to be able to connect, disconnect, and so on and so forth. And that's something that's really key. Now, with Chromebook devices and Apple devices, you have to use a network, unfortunately. So what we've done there is provide one with that built-in access point, and that access point can be connected, disconnected, set to connect to a guest network, or however you want to do it. But that way, anyone can rock up with whatever device they have, connect, and go. And that actually brings up, yeah.
Hey, Brett, sorry, this would be a good time, and I don't know if you saw it or not, but someone asked, what are the main differences between ScreenBeam and Barco ClickShare, and you're kind of touching on some of those things. So I thought maybe that might be something to kind of pull out when you get a chance.
Oh yeah, absolutely. In fact, I was just about to mention that. So one of our largest clients for deployments of ScreenBeam is actually Microsoft. They have our devices in something like 12,000 meeting rooms worldwide. And there's some data that they got from us got for us that's really pretty interesting. What they told us is that on average, deployment of our devices save them 8 to 10 minutes per meeting each day. And when you think about it, when you think about everybody and you know, Microsoft is notorious for their meetings. They have meetings to have meetings, and basically they're involved in meetings all day long, every day. And so consequently, that time racked up very quickly. So essentially, in the span of a day, they had the ROI on the total cost of the device. So day one, it paid for itself just by saving, where you're not having to look for a cable, you're not having to look for an adapter, you're not having to change positions in the room to be the presenter. You're able to do all of that. So huge ROI there. Additionally, what's also key is they found that when they were building new or refurbishing, that we saved them about $2,000 US per room by not having to route cabling and wires and all that other stuff. By just putting a ScreenBeam up near the display, it was fine. Now, with regard to Barco, and I do hear this a lot. There's a couple things that differentiate us. Number one, again, we use what's in your operating system. If it's Windows 10, use Windows Key K, etc. Now, with Barco, you have to plug in a dongle, which is expensive. You have to load up a piece of software. Well, depending upon your group policies, it may or may not let you load that up. And additionally, depending upon your group policies, that USB port may be locked out. So those are a couple of things that factor into that. On top of that, once you plug in and go, you're using everything proprietary between your screen or your device and the screen on the wall. So if that dongle goes missing or anything else, you know, it's going to cost additionally. Plus the base unit's very expensive. And I'll talk about pricing here in a minute. But there's a number of things that set us apart. And what we find is over time, our devices end up being much easier and much less expensive to manage for those reasons. All right, I'm just conscious of the fact that I'm running way low on time, so pardon me, I may go a little bit over. Another thing that I wanted to talk about, and this is really important. Inside ScreenBeam, there are actually 2 radios and an Ethernet port. One radio is dedicated to Miracast, so that's peer-to-peer connectivity for Windows 10 and Android. The second radio is functioning as an access point. Now that can be connected to nothing, or it can also be connected to your network infrastructure or perhaps a guest network. So that way, if someone comes in, you can provide guest internet services if you want, or they can just use it if they have an Apple or Chromebook device to connect for wireless display purposes. It's also an Ethernet port on the back that you can use to connect to the other network. So let's say, for instance, in your environment, you have a guest network and you have corporate infrastructure. Well, the cable can go to the network infrastructure. The Wi-Fi can bridge to a guest network. Now, in those environments, those networks are physically firewalled. So there's no connectivity between the two. So it's absolutely secure that you can functionally pass 2 networks through this without a problem. Optionally, you can turn it off and not plug in a cable, and that's perfectly fine. But I did want to point out that you do have that flexibility of 1 network and 1 guest if you choose. Now, this is something that I'll talk about very quickly, if I can get past all these builds, that I want to make sure we grasp. Now, there's a lot of noise on this slide, and you don't have to pay attention to any of it, because basically what I'm going to break down for you is a question of choice. Now, most products that provide wireless display do so in what's called an NGO type mode. And what that means is they follow the same path that the internet traffic is going down. So essentially, they're taking an already busy motorway and they're piling on a bunch of cars in the form of video signals on that same band. So if your entire network's using channel 11, guess what? Those devices are using channel 11 as well. We prefer AGO mode, which essentially puts your video signal in a helicopter above all of that. So while everybody else is running on channel 11, you can be running on channel 48 or 126 or 136 or whatever you want. So you get to define what channel that sits on to be able to enable the cleanest 4K video signal that you can provide. And that's one of the things that we see as a real advantage to what our technology has to offer, is the ability for you to go in, suss out the environment, figure out how noisy the EM is, and then set it to a particular channel that makes sense to you. Really key differentiator for us there, and something that we find is critically important. Now, to give kind of a snapshot, and I realize these are in US dollars, but I want to kind of give you the layout of costing, where we fit in with some of our other competitors. Now, the other thing to note is that all of this stuff that we do, again, we do without apps, we do without dongles, and we do without the requirement of a network. We can do all of this, and we're very affordably priced against almost all of our competition. I don't need to break down all of this, what it can and can't do, but suffice to say that we provide pretty much every major feature that you could want, that our competitors want or provide, without the need for dongles or apps. All right, Megan, you want to take us home on this one?
No problem. So just to wrap everything up regarding the 1100, so it is a beautiful solution that is truly built for enterprise deployments. You're able to have your ability to have an app-free experience without having to worry about dongles, and you're able to have that 4K platform, as well as have the enhanced features, performance, and price, just as Brett mentioned, versus our competition. So it's truly a game changer. And now Brett is going to talk to you about the partner portal.
Thank you very much, Megan. All right, we do actually have our first version of our partner portal, and this is a great way for you to register and get information from us, download PDFs and other valuable information that you can pass along to customers. And there's also a fair bit of really good training in there. So you can actually enroll and take courses that will deepen your knowledge on how ScreenBeam technology works. Be advised, because we have partnered with a training company for this, that to access the training actually requires a separate credential, but it's a small form that takes 10 seconds to fill out. But do check this out. Do register on our partner program, because eventually we'll add things like deal registration and other cool features that you can take advantage of. So I would encourage you to grab that URL and then go and register today. And then from there, take some training, learn about our technology and all that good stuff. And we will send out follow-on link for all of this, and for you to grab the recording, etc. But do go ahead and register if you could. That would be a great way to get you started. And as we put out more information, you'll be made aware of it. Here's an example of some of the things that we have in terms of ScreenBeam 1000, ScreenBeam 1100, all of the data sheets and battle cards and high-res photos, etc. that you could want, as well as those training videos. So with that, I want to thank all of you for attending this webcast. Apologize for being running over just a little bit, but hopefully you got some value out of it. And if there's still questions, do we have any questions we want to answer live, David?
Yeah, there was a couple of questions. I think we were answering most of them David and Jerome and myself and Richard are trying to answer as many as we can. There were several coming through. One of the ones that I answered that might be good to put on live was, how do you compare to Airtame 2? And that's a really long list, but I did try to answer that in the Q&A, and everybody should see that answer. But there's quite a bit of difference between us and Airtame 2. A couple of things that I mentioned in the notes were that they start with a software-based solution for everything. So things like if you use their software-based solution, so something as simple as extended screen mode. You can't even do that in a Windows 10 environment. You can, I believe, do that with their Mac OS solution, but even something like Windows 10, you can't do it. We are aware they added some sort of Miracast piece to it, but again, it's a software-based Miracast, so you're getting a very limited Miracast experience, and it doesn't even come close to the enterprise-grade solutions that we have. The multiple antennas, the multiple network connectivities, the security that Brett touched on with dual networks, being able to connect it to a guest and an employee network at the same time. That's not even possible with the Airtame 2 solution that they have. Don't look at their website for the comparison, because I think they're still, even though we've asked for over a year now, they're still trying to compare their Airtame 2 to a ScreenBeam about 4 generations ago, maybe. So that's what their comparison is. So don't take a look at their website. We've asked several times for them to update that, but it has not. But we've got more information to email you on that if you really are interested. EMEA sales at screenbeam.com is a good way to go for that. Anyone else? Brett, David, Jerome, you guys, Richard, you guys can all break in with any questions that you saw you might want to answer live. We've still got about 65 people on, so there are additional questions. Please feel free to continue to ask those. We'll stay on for a few more minutes.
Yeah, that'd be great. We can go ahead and discontinue the presentation part and just finish.
Yeah.
Finish answering the questions.
Yeah, that's fine. David, Richard, anyone? Is there any questions that you guys saw that might be good to answer live while people are still on?
Yes, I see one question of someone asking for the list of compatible touch screens.
Oh, okay.
So here we don't have I don't think we have a exhaustive list of screens, but we can always recommend some screens for you that works.
David,
very well. Yeah.
The key on that is whether or not the screen is HID compliant.
Mm-hmm.
If it's listed in the features as HID compliant, there's no reason it shouldn't work.
Yeah, and that's a long list.
Yes. Thank you.
Let's see, somebody answered the link for the partner portal, so that was great. Thank you, Richard, for answering that.
We had also a question for CMS on the cloud. Not sure if we answered it.
There is one that was lingering since the very beginning, and I think I understand the question, and I'll go back. So yeah, there was a question about the cloud, so I'll come back to that. Show some example of or drawing to show connectivity in a normal size meeting room. And I think that was more of a physical based question, like where should it go in the meeting room? Do you guys want to answer that? Anybody want to answer that?
So
how that should set up?
So basically, where it goes is partly a matter of taste, because with regard to distance, I mean, I've walked as far as 16 meters on a trade show floor and had flawless signal. So it's really quite powerful. What I don't recommend doing, that I've seen some people do, is store it in a metal components rack or in a cabinet or something where you're just killing the ability to broadcast. If there's room, you can tuck it behind the display. You can put it on the ceiling. You can, whatever. I would not worry about distance so much as impedance. So just keep it someplace clear.
Yeah, exactly. And then there was a question, as was mentioned, about plans for CMS to cloud. Does anybody want to answer that one?
Yeah, we do have plans to provide a cloud-based solution to for our newer technologies. The latest generations and moving forward of our product. We don't have a timeline for when that will be released, but we will definitely be having a cloud environment CMS version. So do look for that.
All right. Well, that is all the questions that I see on there, Brett. Anyone else see any ones that they want to be able to answer? I think we are good to go.
There's a question regarding if we're going to ever add an HDMI input, and that's in our plans for the next generation product that will come out in a couple of months.
Yes, very good, Jerome. That's absolutely right.
Excellent. Well, yeah, if so, that's most people. We've got about 56 people still online. Thank you for joining us. Those of you who were able to join us for this whole time, we appreciate your ability to connect with us. Please, again, there's several ways to get in touch. You may have several of these folks' emails who are on the call, but EMEA Sales is a good email to kind of reach everybody. If you've got specific questions, please feel free to send a note to there. Again, the partner portal, can someone publish that partner portal? I think it did get published. Yeah, it did. Okay, the partner portal link got published into the chat. So if somebody wants to drop that in the announcements as well, that would be great. But hope you have a great rest of your day. My name is David again, and we've had on the call Brett Roloff, David Charbit, Richard Osmanis, Jerome, and Megan. And so thank you, all of you all, for joining us today. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Stay safe out there, and we hope to be free soon from all this coronavirus stuff. But we'll say coronavirus in this call for posterity. Now we've said it, and we don't have to talk about it anymore. All right. You guys have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much for joining.
Thanks all.